Hey there, and welcome to Thousand Ant, where we give you Unity tutorials, devlogs, and indie game dev advice. My name is Matt Schell, and in this video, I'm going to take you through a rapid prototype which I created in just 6 hours for a hallway shooter game using Unity's high-definition render pipeline. Let's check it out. So if you've been following the channel, you'll know that I've been working on my Untitled Cute Space game, which is a kind of a code-heavy and systems-heavy Animal Crossing-like project that I've been working on for a couple of months. And I'm kind of hitting that indie development valley of despair with that project right now. It feels too big. I don't know what to do next. I don't know how I'm going to finish it. And so I thought, okay, let me just try to refresh my energy a little bit with a little rapid prototyping, not a full-blown side project, but just to kind of get my juices going and make something quick and fun. And so I had seen, there's a guy on Twitter who did this cool hallway shooter, kind of retro 3D hallway shooter. And I was kind of inspired by the simplicity of it. I liked the idea that he had this kind of axis locked, rotationless gameplay where it's almost like a 2D game happening in 3D space, right? Where the player's moving around, shooting, and just kind of moving forward without rotating. And I thought that was kind of cool. And I've also been watching some of the videos by some of the folks like Dani, where he's doing a game in 6 hours or 3 hours or 30 minutes, these kind of crazy rapid prototype projects. And so I said, okay, I'm going to give myself 6 hours. I ended up going like 30 minutes over. So boo for me, cheating, right? I decided to use Unity's HDRP because I knew that I wanted to go for a kind of a low poly voxel aesthetic, because that's basically the only kind of 3D models that I can make, right? And so let's work within the limitations. I've used Magic of Voxel, which is a software that I like a lot. It's free by F. Tracy. I'll put the link down in the description so you can grab it. But it's basically like a pixel art tool for 3D models. And I've used it before. I know how to make some stuff with it quickly. I'm definitely not like a super 3D artist, but I know how to make little pixelated, voxelated things in it that I can just quickly toss into the game and get moving. So while the shader variants for HDRP were compiling, because that can take a while just making a new project, I busted open Magic of Voxel and just sketched up a quick player model. Now, one of the things that's unfortunate, I liked his kind of goofy smiley face, but of course you never ever see that in the game because it's this kind of axis locked hallway shooter. So dope. I also made a quick enemy model, also in Magic of Voxel, and got those imported into my Unity project when it was ready. Now, I decided to use Unity physics to drive the movement in the game. I think actually there probably would be some better ways to do it without using physics, especially for more kind of arcadey, retro kind of game feel. But given that I was time boxing, trying to do something fast, I'm very comfortable programming with Unity's physics API. And I just thought, okay, let me just use this. I know it. It's going to allow me to go fast. And so I ended up doing projectile-based shooting, right? Rigid body bullets fired by both the enemy and the player. And then I moved the player with rigid body.move position, right? So it's not true physics for the player, but basically kind of staying in the rigid body universe. I made some really simple AI for my shooter enemy where they just kind of ray cast forward to look for the player and then do a repeating shoot pattern if they see him. I just really wanted to keep everything as simple as possible and just try to get to something that felt like a game as quickly as I could. And that was kind of a refreshing exercise. I feel like I've been thinking about architecture a lot lately, and that's kind of led me into probably some over-engineering. So just hacking something out in a kind of game jam style was definitely kind of refreshing and fun for me. So once I had my basic AI shooting, I experimented with a jump for the player, which, because I was lazy and didn't want to check for collisions with the ground to reset the jump, I just turned into a kind of a jetpack movement. I ended up not using it at all. I also put in this shield mechanic, which I think it's actually cool so that the player can shield bullets and they can bounce back. And the kind of mechanical trade-off that I made was that when you have the shield up, you move really, really slowly, which is a kind of a penalty for the player, so they shouldn't just shield all the time. Honestly, I didn't even really end up using it in the final gameplay. By the time I was at the end, I just was spamming bullets. I think if I refine this a little further, I might make it so that shooting makes you go slow, so that it gives you a disincentive to just hold down the fire button, which is basically the best strategy now. Once I had my kind of shooting and shielding and my first enemy, I started to play around a little bit with laying out some level geometry and trying to get a look together in HDRP. I'm pretty happy with what I got. I got this kind of foggy, bloomy, kind of over-the-top look, but I gotta say I struggled to express the look that I wanted to with HDRP. I probably wouldn't use it for this kind of rapid prototyping next time unless I got a lot better at using it. HDRP is super powerful. It's also super complicated. And given that I didn't really know how to use it, probably it wasn't such a good idea. I probably could have expressed an idea more quickly using built-in or even lightweight. Once I had a look that I was kind of somewhat reasonably happy with, I added in these enemies that run towards the player, and I set up a trigger with an event that uses the ScriptableObject Architecture asset by Daniel Everland of Everland Games. So I did a video about this on the channel a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to test this out in this rapid prototyping format, and I gotta say I was pretty happy with it. I basically used it for events. I used it to register when the enemies were killed. I used it to register when the player had passed into a trigger so the enemies could start running together, and then I used that same event to spawn the next level chunk. The game uses a kind of an endless runner style level generation. And so when the player gets to a certain point, we spawn the next level chunk in front of them. And I did that using the same event approach. And I was pretty happy with that. And because the levels were procedural, I didn't want to get into a lot of tightly coupled scene references, right? So using events and this scriptable event approach felt pretty good there. One of the things that I wanted to experiment with mechanic-wise was a combo and score multiplier system. So I'm a big fan of Vlambier's game Luftrausers, which is a kind of World War II themed aerial shooter game where you are encouraged to get a high score by continuing a combo streak. So every time you kill a unit, it keeps your streak going and your score multiplier goes up and up and up, right? So there's a kind of pressure in that mechanically to get the player to play aggressive, right? And that's a kind of a style of play that I really like. I like kind of diving into the middle of a bunch of enemies and kind of playing risky in action games, right? I don't really like cover shooters or these kind of conservative tactical hiding behind walls and constantly retreating to recharge your health kind of things. Although Luftrausers actually uses recharging health, which is interesting in that context. But I thought that having this kind of score combo thing that resets every 5 seconds pushes you forward, pushes you to be aggressive, pushes you to kind of stay in the action, right? So I wanted to create something that was fast, intense, encourages you to take risks, and kind of constantly keeps the momentum and the intensity up over a relatively short burst of gameplay, right? I put in a little integer table to keep track of the score multipliers, and each time you kill an enemy, your combo multiplier goes up, and then if you don't kill an enemy for 5 seconds, it resets back down. And I connected that all up using the scriptable object event approach, where the combo system is listening for enemy killed events, which the score system is also listening for, and that all felt pretty good and worked pretty nicely. Then I just put in a really, really simple chunk-based procedural level generation system where when you pass through a trigger, it spawns the next level chunk, so you can have kind of endless level generation. And one of the things that I really want to use this as an example for, and I think will be cool with the event-based approach, is adding a bunch of juice and feedback. So right now there's just a lot of bloom and there's some physics stuff that gives, and I put in a few little particles, but there's not a lot of juice or feedback in here, and that is a topic that I'm pretty interested in that is not really well suited to my cute space game. So I think I might use this one to kind of explore that a little bit, just adding juice and polish to this kind of action demo. And I think that'll be a fun thing to explore in the future. So one of the other things that I experimented with was doing a low resolution rendering of the scene. I thought that was a kind of a funny idea to take this high-res, pretty HDRP render and then take it and scale it down to like 320 by 180. I did this using a render texture and a full screen raw UI image. I actually have a tutorial on that on my Matt Marefish channel. I can link that in the description. Basically, at the last minute, I decided to add a one-hit, one-kill mechanic to the player, but also because I felt it fit the theme, right, in a kind of a Devil Daggers, high difficulty kind of way. What I did was just when any object that can kill the player collides, I have that object raise an event, which is listened for by a restarter object that then just uses Unity's scene management API to just reload the whole scene. Doing the whole scene reload is definitely not the most efficient way to do it, but for a prototype, it's just a quick and dirty way to get the player to restart, and that worked fine. So for me, some of the takeaways were 6-hour time limit, really good, right? It's a small time investment. That sense of urgency of working against the clock kept me focused, kept me from wasting time or doing too much Googling or researching or over-architecting, right? Just get the mechanics implemented and test, try to make something fun as fast as possible. That was super positive. Using HDRP was probably overkill here and added some complexity that I probably could have done without. I do think I'm going to get some nice visuals out of it if I choose to go further. So I would say that's kind of 50-50. Using Magic of Voxel was great. I got some models really quick. I'm cautiously optimistic about the concept. I like the combo system. I like actually the very tight hallway shooting thing with just basically moving left and right. It's maybe a little bit of a kind of a casual game feeling, but I think there's something cool and actiony and arcadey there, and so I'm having fun with that. I do think this will be a cool thing to add a bunch of juice to, some post-processing effects, maybe some tweening animations, more particles. Obviously, music and sound effects would be a great thing to add to this. I think we could maybe make some interesting videos on the channel on that. And I think generally just for me, breaking out of my project that I've been working on for a couple of months and just doing a quick, fast, fun thing, right? As not a full side project, not a big diversion, but just kind of refreshing the creative juices in doing a short time box prototype was really fun. So if you're enjoying the content on the channel, please do consider subscribing, turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. Drop a like on the video. It helps other people like you to discover the content via the YouTube algorithm. And if you have any questions or suggestions about anything that we covered during the video, please do drop us a comment down below. We've been having some great conversations there in the comment section and in the 1000 Ant Discord, which you can also find linked in the description. As always, I really appreciate your spending a little bit of your time with me, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.